Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation. You chose style. Bombas has styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Campus Killings,
and
Killer Communications.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to support Missing Persons and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but for every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcasts, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together, we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us. So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Ryan Shtuka was born on March 17, 1997, St. Patrick's Day, to parents Heather and Scott. He grew up in Beaumont, Alberta, Canada, in a very stable and loving family. Ryan was very easygoing and well-liked, athletic and smart, his mom Heather tells us. He loved being active and doing outdoor activities. For example, he played on a rugby team, and he loved to shred on his snowboard. After high school, he worked for a year at the company his dad worked for, and then he switched gears and attended university for a year. But at age 20, he decided to take a year to do something different. He and his close friend James landed jobs at a tubing operation in the resort town of Sun Peaks, British Columbia, about a 9-hour drive from home. They moved up there on December 1st, 2017. Ryan was very happy with his relaxed job as a lift operator and had even turned down a managerial role because he didn't want to take things too seriously. He made quite a few friends among the other young people who worked at the resort, and he enjoyed boarding and partying when he wasn't working. On Friday, February 16th, 2018, Ryan had a typical day. He went to work. He did some online banking, paying bills and depositing his paycheck, and then he withdrew some cash to make sure he had funds for the weekend. He drove a friend to do some errands, and then on Friday evening he went to a silent disco, where the last known photo of him was taken with headphones on and drink in hand, raising his glass with a wide smile. Then he went to a small house party on Burfield Drive with his roommate James and some other friends, other kids who worked at the resort. His roommate left before him and walked back to the staff accommodations facility, about a 15-minute walk. A little later, 2 other friends named Chris and Kristen were preparing to leave, and their impression was that Ryan was also leaving and was right behind them. They started walking toward the resort employee housing, and when they turned to look, they realized Ryan was not behind them, and they assumed he stayed at the house. The people remaining in the house took a selfie and texted it to someone else around 1:30 in the morning. Ryan was not in the photo, which implies he had left by that time. And Ryan never returned to his apartment. The next evening, around 7:30 p.m., Ryan's manager called James and told him Ryan had not showed up for work. James and the others looked for Ryan, but when they couldn't find him, they filed a missing persons report with the RCMP and texted the Shtukas. Heather and Scott immediately knew something was very wrong, and they set out on the 9.5-hour drive to the resort town of Sun Peaks. The RCMP did a search of the area that evening and the next day, Sunday, using scent dogs, drones, and helicopters equipped with thermal detection equipment. There were 3 routes Ryan could have taken home, and all 3 were searched. Since then, volunteer searches totaling over 1,000 civilians have scoured miles and miles of terrain surrounding the village of Sun Peaks, and have even used heavy equipment to move mountains of snow and uncover gullies and crevasses, but no trace of Ryan has ever been found. The RCMP pinged his phone on Sunday, and it indicated it pinged off one of the 3 towers that serves Sun Peaks. But that wasn't necessarily indicative that his phone was physically present there, because the towers atop the hill served a wide area. A sighting of a person walking on a dark roadway in Sun Peaks late on the night Ryan went missing came to light in the weeks after his disappearance. It led the Shtukas to think that Ryan might have decided not to go home, but to walk to a late-night pizza joint in town. However, cameras at the pizza place recorded no sign of Ryan. There was also an investigation into a report by a man named Jim Reed, who told the RCMP that on the night Ryan went missing, he heard a man's voice outside that sounded angry, yelling at someone else to get in the fucking car. This incident proved to be quite a long walk away from where Ryan was last seen, and there is no evidence whatsoever that Ryan was there or involved. In fact, the RCMP has said there is no evidence at all that Ryan succumbed to foul play. And Ryan had no enemies. His family says Ryan was a great, fun guy, a loyal friend, a laid-back, happy young man who was simply enjoying winter resort worker life. He was very unlikely to be mixed up in anything untoward or to confront or challenge the wrong person. There was no drama, no tension, and his last day was 100% normal by all accounts, until it wasn't. The night Ryan vanished was very cold, in the -20s Celsius, and there were feet, plural, of snow on the ground. If Ryan had gotten disoriented on his walk back to his accommodations, gotten lost, gotten hypothermia, and frozen to death, it seems likely he would have been found by now, given all the searches that had been conducted for him. In October 2023, the Shtuka family increased the reward for information from $15,000 to $25,000. That reward is still available today. Ryan Shtuka has been missing for nearly 8 years. He is 6 feet tall, weighs 180 pounds, and has blonde hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing dark jeans, a gray and white shirt, a blue coat, and a burgundy baseball hat. Mike Morford sat down with Heather Shtuka, Ryan's mother, to talk about her son's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Every story begins somewhere. For your child, it could begin with a Guardian bike, built right here in the USA, engineered for safety and designed for confidence. Kids of all ages are learning to ride in just one day. No tears, no frustration. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row. This holiday season, give the gift that's safer, smarter, and built to last. Visit GuardianBikes.com to save up to 40% on all bikes, plus a free accessory bundle worth over $100.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Caulipower's got your back. Caulipower makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Caulipower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcaulipower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The wait is over. The Knix Black Friday sale is on now at knix.com. Shop early and save up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, all kinds of limited-time daily deals from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Don't miss your chance to save big on innovative intimates like leak-proof underwear, wireless bras, shapewear, and more. Everything is on sale. Millions have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them too. During the Black Friday sale, save up to 60% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop the best deals of the year on Knix's best-selling assortment of wireless bras. Don't miss this chance to stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Black Friday event. That's knix.com. The sale ends December 2nd and sizes will sell out. Go to knix.com. That's knix.com.
Hi, Heather, and thank you for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your son Ryan's case with us.
Thank you for having me.
We're happy to have you here. I know this has been an ordeal for you for almost 8 years now, it seems. And I can't imagine how tough that's been for you. You know, this disappearance is very strange. And we want to ask you about some of the case details and figure out, if we can, what we know, what we don't know. But before we dive into that part of it, to the mystery of what happened here, can you tell us a little bit about your son, Ryan, and help listeners understand, who he was?
Oh, I think that's probably the toughest question I ever get asked. And I don't think after 8 years it gets any easier, because he's a combination of so many different things to so many different people. Like, I can tell you what we knew from him being our son, just a funny, athletic, smart, very mischievous, a tad sarcastic, which he came by honestly, I think, between myself and my husband, just athletic and fun and, just an all-around normal young man. And I would say that to his friends, he was loyal, and they still miss him 8 years later, and he's left a huge hole in their lives. And despite the fact that even as his mother, I can't say I knew everything about him. I mean, what parent does? But I would say that his personality and who he was really mirror what we know and what his friends would describe him as.
Yeah, it seems like from everything that I've read and seen, it seems like he was really outgoing, popular. You mentioned he played sports. Was he the type of person that would go to a party and sort of be the life of the party? People would gravitate towards him?
Not at all. I tend to think that I can talk to anybody about anything. So small talk is easy enough for me. I think he matched my husband very much in the fact that they're both in the beginning sort of introspective. Like, he would sit, he was very outgoing with his friends. They would probably gravitate to him when they were in a group as he would have gravitated to others. But going into a new situation, I think he liked to assess the situation first. He sort of sat back, observed, would make, comments to his friends, that sort of thing. But he was not, I wouldn't say, unless he knew people there, he wouldn't go into a party where he didn't know anybody and be the life of it. Now, I will say that my husband is not like that now. I think when I first met him in those early stages, when you're 20 and you're trying to figure yourself out, I think you just sort of assess things. I would say that my husband is probably the more outgoing out of the two of us now after 30 years of marriage.
Yeah, so Ryan's probably the type of person that maybe was, if he's not sure of his surroundings, he's going to sit back and see what's going on and who's there, and before he decides what he's going to do, how he's going to act with people there.
Absolutely. Always assessing, I think.
Yeah. And as far as a group of friends, people that he hung out with, people that he was close to, was it a large group or was it a smaller group?
Well, in our town of Beaumont, Alberta, in Canada, we have, our particular town, Ryan went to a French immersion school.
And so actually all schools here offer French immersion. He was just in that program. And so when he started grade 1, he really traveled and the class sizes were so small. So on average, there was about 17 kids from the time that he was in grade 1 until he went to, I think, grade 9 when he went into high school. So it was the same set of kids that he went from class to class to class. And there was about 10 girls and 7 boys. So they were a very close-knit group. They tended to kind of stick together. And so I would say not an overly large class. Certainly as he went into high school, that changed. There was kids from other schools all congregating into one high school. And so there was a lot of French. He took some classes in French and some classes in English. And so I think there was a real amalgamation of kids, but still a solid core that he went from grade 1 all the way up until he disappeared.
And as he got older and out of high school, did his group of friends, did it change at all from that core people that he knew growing up? Did he get any newer friends as he got older from that maybe that he didn't go to school with?
Not really. No, it was the same kids over and over. Even when he left school, there was 2 years before he went up to Sun Peaks that he had the same kids that he hung out with all the time. We always knew who it was. There was very few people that came in that were new to us. Certainly when he went up to Sun Peaks, he met a couple of friends that, really became important to him. But other than that, no, he had the same sort of friends.
So going back to early 2018, when Ryan went missing, what was going on in his life as far as where he was job-wise, relationship-wise, friendship-wise? What was going on with him at that point?
Well, he had finished school, graduated, and he was sort of in that lull, that period of uncertainty that I think most kids tend to go through after finishing high school. Wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do. There was lots of avenues open to him. He was a very smart kid, but I don't think he knew exactly. So when he left school, he went to work with the company that my husband works for, and he did that for a year. And I think that was supposed to help gauge, whether going out and working a trade was going to be something that he would be interested in. And at the end of the year, he did well. He liked it. He gained some valuable skills, but I think then he was like, I'm going to try school. So then he did a year of university and did really well. But I remember the day that he told me he was going up to Sun Peaks, he said, I'm not sure I'm going to go back to school in the fall. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Where's your mind at? And he's like, I just don't know what I want to do. And I'm afraid, because he was in science, and he's like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do at the end of it. And I don't want to keep wasting money until I figure out exactly what I want to do. I'm like, okay. And that's when he broached the idea of taking a year off to go and do sort of, I say it's a year at adventure, but it was still just a different path of working.
So it sounds like a lot of young men. I remember when I was that age, I was sort of in the same place he was, or not really out of high school, not really wanting to know what I wanted to do with my life. So I think that was, common for young men his age. And was he in a happy place? Was he, despite not maybe knowing exactly what he wanted to do, was he sort of, still in a good mood and happy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess this is where it comes into, as a parent, do you really know? But on from all appearances, yes, he was happy. There was no pressure on us to figure out what he wanted to do. I mean, I remember kind of doing a career change in my late 30s, and then again after Ryan went missing. So we understand that life is not linear, that there'll be things coming in, and to take your time. This is the one time in your life that you can sort of choose to be selfish and sort of figure out what you want to do. So there was no pressure from my husband Scott and I on what Ryan was going to do. So if he wanted to work, if he decided that he was going to move out and then come back in, 10 years later and say, I'm gonna be an astronaut, we would have said, okay, like what do we need to help you do? So from that perspective, there wasn't a pressure. Maybe there was. We certainly went to school, so it wasn't like he felt like he was falling behind. And his friend group was such a diverse group of kids. So some were going off and, following that educational path where they were going to university, or some were doing trades, some were just working throughout. So I don't know if he felt like he was falling behind. I don't think he did. I think he was okay. Maybe he felt inside there was a little bit of pressure from wanting to know what he wanted to do and trying to find that path. But he didn't actually express any disappointment in himself.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys were there to really support him no matter what he chose, so he didn't have, that pressure that you mentioned on him.
Yeah, and we continue to do that with both of our daughters. One's 25 and the youngest is 20. And so, there's lots of changes in this world today, and so I want them to be happy, and I want them to achieve what path they feel is the best that they can do, and that all started with Ryan.
Every story begins somewhere. For your child, it could begin with a Guardian bike, built right here in the USA, engineered for safety and designed for confidence. Kids of all ages are learning to ride in just one day. No tears, no frustration. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row. This holiday season, give the gift that's safer, smarter, and built to last. Visit GuardianBikes.com to save up to 40% on all bikes, plus a free accessory bundle worth over $100.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Caulipower's got your back. Caulipower makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Caulipower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcaulipower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The wait is over. The Knix Black Friday sale is on now at knix.com. Shop early and save up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, all kinds of limited-time daily deals from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Don't miss your chance to save big on innovative intimates like leak-proof underwear, wireless bras, shapewear, and more. Everything is on sale. Millions have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them too. During the Black Friday sale, save up to 60% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop the best deals of the year on Knix's best-selling assortment of wireless bras. Don't miss this chance to stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Black Friday event. That's knix.com. The sale ends December 2nd and sizes will sell out. Go to knix.com. That's knix.com.
And let's go back to February 16, 2018. I think it's very important to go through the timeline of that day. Can you walk us through that day, what's been established, all the way up to the time that he went missing?
Yeah, we knew at this point he was working. He went to Sun Peaks, which is about 9.5 hours away from Beaumont in British Columbia. And so it's about 45 minutes outside of the town or city of Kamloops, and it's up this long winding hill. He decided that he was going to go and work a season there as a lift operator. So his job was to work at this their facility called Tube Time. So essentially, what it is that kids come up or families come up and want to go sliding down the tube. He helped facilitate them getting on and off and pushing them down. So pretty easy job for him to do, and he had Saturdays and Sundays off. So a pretty good kid for him to go working 11, I think, till 7 or 11:30 till 7:30, something along those lines. So every day he went out and he was snowboarding for 36 days straight. He was up as soon as that ski lift opened and would do a couple of runs and then go down and start his shift for the day. And so that was pretty much normal. And that's what happened on February 16th, on that Friday. He went and, always 5 minutes late for work because he'd be coming down the last run, slipping into work, taking off the snowboard boots and putting on his boots and then starting his shift for the day. They always knew that. They knew to expect him a couple of minutes late every single shift that he worked. So he went in as normal, worked that Friday. He got paid that day. So I think he did the same things that he had done, and his bank account sort of supports that. Received his money, went at lunch, made sure he paid his phone bill, he paid his loan for his car, and paid rent. And then he went to the bank and took out money for his weekend. They were going out. And so I guess that he didn't like to go out to the bars when they would go out at night and use his debit or credit. He wanted to have cash. That way he always knew how much money he was going to spend. So he did all the things that were normal for that day. And then after finishing work, he texted his roommate, James, that he had come from Beaumont, had known all through, early elementary and then high school. They went there together and were roommates. And so he texted him and said, "I'm on my way home." I think he picked up one of the guys that worked in one of the restaurants and drove him to the market that was there because he wasn't feeling well, got him some stuff, and then drove him back. Because up there in Sun Peaks at the time, there were no lifts, no Ubers, no taxis, very few shuttles, not a lot of buses. So most of the people walked to and from their accommodations to the hill, to their place of employment, and would walk back. Ryan was an anomaly because he came from Canada, had a car with him, so he would just drive to work and then drive home. And that's what he did that night. He came in, finished, dropped his friend off at his staff accommodation, and then he went to his residency. I think at that point, met up with his friends, had some drinks, and then they got a ride up to the bar where they were going to go and spend the evening. And so they spent the evening up there at a silent disco. And if anybody's not familiar with that, you get these earphones. I think they play 1 or 2 channels. The entire venue would be silent and everybody would be sort of jamming to their own beats. Sort of a fun concept. So he was there for that night. And that's where the last picture that we have that was taken of him through one of the venue's photographers. Left there with a bunch at the end of the evening. And as they were walking back to staff accommodations, which was at the bottom of the hill of the ski resort, it's about 25-minute walk. And at that time it was about minus 26, which is really, really cold. And I think one of the tour buses that comes up and drops off airline passengers, they were going back down to Kamloops and saw a group of people and took pity on them. And then drove them down to staff accommodation so that they wouldn't have to walk. They got dropped off, and some people went to their staff accommodations. Some of Ryan's roommates went to his residence, and Ryan, James, and his 2 other roommates, Chris and Kristen, all walked with other people to this house they called it the Sunday Fun Day house. It was on Burfield Drive, which is just a short walk to his residence. They went there because that was the night that, there was 3 houses in that area and each house sort of hosted people coming over, not general people, but people that were lift operators or worked for the resort or something like that. So most of them had some connection to the resort in some way. So they all went there for the evening. I don't know how long they're there. I mean, we're asking people to recount an evening where they have either been drinking or they could have been doing recreational drugs or they could have been doing both. And so it's really hard for us to get a clear answer of what happened and how long Ryan was there. And I think that's where a lot of this mystery stems from, because we don't have Ryan actually leaving. We know he was there, and then we know that he wasn't. And those are really the facts that we have. And so his one roommate, James, left early and went home. And then Chris and Kristen stood up and said that they were heading home. And it looked like in their mind that Ryan was standing up to perhaps put on a coat or something and maybe follow behind them. But they didn't notice him when they left, and they were walking a couple of minutes down. They looked behind and Ryan wasn't there. And so, they didn't anticipate that he didn't say he was coming. They just assumed. They looked behind. He wasn't there. They assumed either he decided to stay or that he was just going to catch up with them. Again, Ryan was almost 21 at this point in time. And so it's not unusual for people to be walking. That is the general course of things that people do. There isn't a lot of transportation, so they do walk from place to place. And they just assumed that he would have shown up, and then he didn't. And that's really what we know of Ryan and that leading up to that night.
So this house where the party happened on Burfield Drive, you said it wasn't very far. Do you know about how far it was from his place?
I did a walk in those early days, and of course, I was walking at a pace that it wasn't minus 26 out and snowing. But it would have taken me probably about an 18-minute walk. It wouldn't have taken that long. In actual fact, the house is it's divided between a creek and then some, obviously some trees and stuff between them, but it's completely covered in snow. So the easiest way, the fastest way to get from where the party was to where his house was to just go out the back and go behind. But none of those houses do that because most of them are not duplexes, but they were fourplexes. And so a lot of them had basement suites. They don't have backyards. You're in a mountainous region. So most people I can't imagine anybody would have gone that way even without that amount of snow. But the snow was about 8 to 14 feet at the time. So walking along the road, I would say it would take them less than 10 minutes to get from that house to his residence.
But extremely cold. And then again, someone that had been drinking, maybe it would, if they're trying to walk slow and take their time, maybe they would vary in time, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm curious, had he ever been to that house before? Had he been to any parties there? Did he know the people specifically that were there?
No, he had been, I believe, a couple of times to that house. There was about 3 houses that they would rotate, but he had only been there for 2.5 months. So it wasn't a regular occurrence that he would have shown up. And I think what tells us that they weren't there that often, when James left the house, he actually took, there's 2 ways you could have gotten home, but most people would have turned left to go down to the end of the street, and then there's a path, and then he would have shown up at either staff accommodations or the residence. James took the wrong way. He turned right because he got sort of turned around from where he would have thought he needed to go. So he wasn't as familiar, which tells me they hadn't been to that house as a regular occurrence.
And, so you sort of described it earlier that his friends leave, they don't really know that Ryan's with him. They assume he was coming along, but then they realize he's not with them. I'm curious, when did it become known or realized that, hey, something's wrong here? Where's Ryan? When did that happen, and who was the person that sort of sounded the alarm?
It's unfortunate, but because of there was, in his little small house, there was 6 people, but 7 people living there at the time. One was a boyfriend of one of the girls that was staying there, and he was there for a month, scheduled to go back a couple of days after Ryan went missing. But so that there's a lot of movement going on in there. They're not tracking each other; they're grown adults. So James came home and went to bed. Some of the roommates were still up, and they had some friends over. And they noted James coming in and going to bed. And then Chris and Kristen came home, had a conversation with some of those same roommates, and then they went to bed. So they at that point probably thought Ryan was still staying, or I guess they didn't ask if he had managed to get home before them. that sort of thing. So the next day, Ryan, because like I said earlier, Ryan was always five minutes late for work every single day. So on that particular Saturday, his manager texted one of the roommates, I can't remember which one, and said, "Hey, is Ryan coming in today? Today's going to be a busy day. It was a long weekend, and so we want to make sure he's coming." And at that point, Ryan had never called in sick. And actually, as growing up in those years that he held jobs, Ryan very rarely called in sick. He went in no matter what. So they said, they went and looked. Of course, 21-year-old, you walk into his room, his bed is not neatly made. So there's no indication that he'd either slept there or not slept there. You wouldn't have been able to tell. And so they looked around, didn't see his boots. They assumed that he was on the run and just was going to make it down to work. And they said, "Yeah, he's not here, so he must be on his way." And then they didn't hear from the manager again until 7:30 that night, that Saturday night. And at that point, she then texted whoever she had texted in the first place and said, "He actually never showed up today." And that's when they got concerned, because even though James had known him for quite some time, but Chris and Kristen did not know him as well. They'd only known him for 2.5 months. But even in that moment, they recognized something was wrong, because that was not the character, which again mirrors what we would have said and what his friends growing up would have said about his personality. Was just not one to not show up and not text anybody or not call in. So at that point, they became concerned, but it wasn't until about 7:30 on that Saturday night that they recognized that he hadn't been where he was supposed to have been.
And did they then call you to say something's wrong, or did they call the police directly?
At first, they were just, everybody, even I do, you sit there and you go, okay, you're trying to imagine all the possible scenarios, even the ones that may not make sense, because considering the alternative is a lot more frightening. So they posted on the Facebook page that is dedicated just to people that live up in Sun Peaks and said, has anybody seen him? Is he still at the party? They connected with people who were at the party, or do you remember seeing him? Perhaps he went home with somebody. Perhaps he decided to take the day off. Perhaps his phone wasn't working and he couldn't get a hold of anybody, and he was hungover and decided not to go. They were looking at everything. And when they didn't receive any responses, or everybody had said they hadn't seen him, then they expanded their search and started calling down to the hospitals. They thought, oh, maybe something happened. We just weren't aware of it. Maybe his family's aware of it, something like that. And at one point, I think then the nurse or whoever they had spoken to at the hospital said, he's not here. And if he's been gone and you're not certain, I would suggest calling your local law enforcement, which is the RCMP. So they did that. And at that point, about 9:30 Alberta time, so 8:30, so probably less than an hour after they received the notification, we received a text from James saying that Ryan hadn't shown up the night before and hadn't gone to work that day, and that they had filed a missing persons report with the RCMP.
Now, when you heard that got that text, were you concerned, or did you just maybe think, okay, he's gone off, he's hanging out with somebody, decided to take the day off? Were you immediately concerned, or were you thinking there was a logical explanation for it?
No, there was no logical explanation why Ryan wouldn't have gone. Again, it was not his personality. And I think I just couldn't understand. Like when I got the text, I was reading it, and I was reading it out loud to my husband, who was in the kitchen at the time. And I'm reading it so fast, and I'm stumbling over the words, and I'm not making sense. I can't comprehend it myself. And then Scott's like, slow down, Heather. Like, what are you saying? And I'm like, I physically don't think I can read this again. I don't think. So he read it and he goes, I'm going to call the RCMP. You call James and find out. Because we knew at that moment, your whole world turns on its axis, and you, the pit in our stomach was there, and it was real. And I remember talking to James, because I was like, we had been there 2 years before as a family with another family for New Year's. But I didn't really know the whole town. I mean, because there was so many of us, we didn't venture out. We went to the hill. We came back to our accommodations. We made our own meals. We didn't go around. We didn't see a lot of Sun Peaks. So I just couldn't understand how somebody could be at a place and then and then just walk and not be seen again. I couldn't understand how that happens. Like, I'm thinking about my own hometown. Like, you walk down the street, someone should be able to see you. You should be able to easily be found. And I just couldn't comprehend where he was and why he didn't get to where he needed to be. And so at that time, we had talked to the RCMP, and Scott had asked them. He goes, "Do you think we should come up?" And he's like, their response was, well, we can't say, but drive carefully. And so we knew in that moment that we were traveling the 9.5 hours to go to Sun Peaks.
It's got to be a long, agonizing 9.5 hours too.
It was the longest and the shortest ride I've ever taken, I think. And we've done that particular route countless times, but I still remember it was dark. It was in the middle of the night. We left at about 11 o'clock our time. And, you're just sitting there in silence and disbelief. And I just remember, saying to Scott, like, wouldn't I know if something had happened to Ryan and he's not here anymore? Wouldn't I, as his mother, know? Isn't that what you see in you read in all the books and you see in all the TVs, where they just intrinsically know that their lifeblood is no longer here? And I had no clue, but I just know every moment that we drove, the temperatures kept dropping, and the snow kept falling, and the silence was deafening. You pray for everything, to any deity, God, creator, anything that you can do that, if there is a lesson to be learned, that it wouldn't be at the expense of our son.
Every story begins somewhere. For your child, it could begin with a Guardian bike, built right here in the USA, engineered for safety and designed for confidence. Kids of all ages are learning to ride in just one day. No tears, no frustration. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row. This holiday season, give the gift that's safer, smarter, and built to last. Visit GuardianBikes.com to save up to 40% on all bikes, plus a free accessory bundle worth over $100.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Cauli Power's got your back. Cauli Power makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing, nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Cauli Power's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcaulipower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The wait is over. The Knix Black Friday sale is on now at knix.com. Shop early and save up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, all kinds of limited-time daily deals from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Don't miss your chance to save big on innovative intimates like leak-proof underwear, wireless bras, shapewear, and more. Everything is on sale. Millions have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them too. During the Black Friday sale, save up to 60% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop the best deals of the year on Knix's best-selling assortment of wireless bras. Don't miss this chance to stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Black Friday event. That's knix.com. The sale ends December 2nd and sizes will sell out. Go to knix.com. That's knix.com.
As far as the police go, early on, did they take the case seriously, do you think? Or was it more of, hey, he's a college age kid that's out partying someplace and he'll turn up. What was the attitude from police early on?
You know what, I have to say, pretty responsive. And I've heard about other cases that it's not that doesn't happen, but in our particular case, perhaps it was the proximity of being in a wilderness, and the resort being so far away, and limited options about where someone could go, that they actually, as soon as they received the notification, when we called the RCMP within the first couple of minutes of receiving it, they had already had boots on the ground. They were already on their way up to Sun Peaks from Kamloops, which is about 45 minutes away. Their detachment went up, and they were bringing dogs up, and so the canine unit was probably one of the first on the scenes, and so they went until, I think, 2 or 3 in the morning, and then they went home, rested, and then they met us again when we showed up about 6:30, 7 o'clock. They were ready to go again to look for him. So I think the response was quick. Unfortunately for family members, and maybe this is just particular to our case, you know, they have search and rescue comes out, and the way it works in Canada and the provinces, that the search and rescue get tasked by the police to come to do the search, because the police have a lot of hats that they wear, but search and rescue is not one of them. They'll do tactical, which is they're looking for clues, but search and rescue, where we're looking for people, they task that out to their the professionals that do that all the time. So they get tasked, search and rescue get tasked to come out, and when those tasks are complete, until they get a new direction from the RCMP, their job is done. And so for us, we had 1 day of actual searching, and that was that Sunday. So we arrived at 6:37 in the morning. They started their search around 9:30, 10. The days were short, so they finished probably about 4:35 when it got too dark. Now, they had mobilized the night before to make sure that they knew what they were doing, and then they certainly finished up debriefing afterwards. But the actual search was that 1 day of daylight. And then I remember the RCMP and the search and rescue, the SARS manager, coming in and saying, "Well, we haven't found him. On your way out of town tomorrow or the next day, just stop by the detachment and we'll tell you what's going to happen next." And we, my husband and I are just sitting there, dumbfounded, because we think, well, you haven't found him and you expect us to go home. We're not going home. We're not going to have somebody trip over our son like he's trash or he's garbage as the snow melts, because even at that point in time, it just seemed like he was a missing person case. There was no red flags. And I think that's what's so difficult now, is there's still no red flags. He's still considered missing. I think the only misstep is that, yes, they took it seriously. We did have him listed as a missing person. We did not know that they were also doing a parallel investigation in case something was suspicious in nature, which, you're quite happy to know that they're doing that simultaneously, so that if the case turns from a missing person into a suspicious person's case, or foul play is suspected, that they've been doing this parallel all the way along, so that if that turns over into something else, then they haven't had to go back weeks, months, days to pick up those pieces, that they were doing it side by side. But we didn't know that until almost 27 days into Ryan's disappearance.
So, and I'm curious too, as far as the search goes, how many dogs and people would you estimate were out there searching for him?
So that first day, search and rescue came up, and they had canines. They had drones, I want to say infrared, thermal, helicopter. They had everything. They had what they consider convergence, which are volunteers. So they had people from the community that also came out and were going with search and rescue team members. So they did all of that. And, even though I do say we had 1 day of searching, they did come back the following Saturday again. However, at that point, I always consider them just another group of volunteers that at this point we were doing the command centers. And we had them subsequently come a couple of times, but but really no formal search out of that. We had to turn around that Monday morning after everybody left, and we walked into what their makeshift command was, and it was turned back into the ski patrol center. And I think that's when we fully recognized that we were on our own, that if anybody was going to search for Ryan, it would be us. And so we started the command center. And I would say over the 4.5 months that we lived there and searched 7 days a week, we had over 1,100 volunteers that came out through our social posts and our asks. We had 2 buses that were that originated from Beaumont and Edmonton that would stop either in Red Deer or Calgary to pick up more volunteers and take them out for the weekend to come and search. We even had a group of people that fundraised for a plane. So they chartered a plane to come out for Mother's Day weekend so they could stay out for longer than 1 day of searching and do 2. So we've had a couple of dog groups that came up during that time. So we've had quite a few people that dedicated themselves to searching for Ryan. And I would say that 75% of them came back more than once.
So it sounds like a really large effort. And I'm curious, was there any hint of the dogs hitting on Ryan's scent at all? Was there anything of Ryan's that was found any place along these searches?
I think sometimes there's, and I struggle to understand the science behind dogs. I mean, certainly some dogs are trained in cadavers. So we did have some cadaver dogs come up. However, they didn't come up, I think, until end of March. And during that time, March and April. So, you got your snow melting. And so some of those areas that they, the dogs made sort of that signal that something was off. It was so close to the raging river because there was so much snow that year that the creek, when the snow runoff comes, the creek expands. And so they were unable to search about 5 feet on either side of the creek bed because the water was flowing and it was not safe for the dogs. So of course, it looked like there was some hits there, but you could never go down and really investigate it at that time.
And I'm curious, once the weather relented or once it got safer to search those areas, were those areas searched too along that water?
Yeah, I would say that, if you look at a map, our friends and our volunteers and Scott and I have searched it. It feels like every single inch, and yet we know that's not true. In those early days, there was so much snow falling that you could send out a group of people and come back and go by it the next day, and it looks like nothing's been touched. So it's a really hard thing, and you're now asking, and people always say, "Oh, you would have found him by now." You would think so. However, you're asking people that are not skilled. We do not have. I mean, we've learned some stuff, but we don't have the skill and expertise. We don't have the equipment. A lot of times, we makeshifted our own. To do the things that we needed to do to dig deep into snow or anything like that. So we don't have the expertise, the skills, and the knowledge and experience to be able to do that. And they even pass that on to our volunteers that are coming in. So I feel like we've done a good job. We have learned a lot. But in those early days, I think that you were searching with one hand tied behind your back.
I'm curious, did the police try to ping his phone or access his data or anything like that, looking for clues?
His phone was pinged on Saturday night. So he went missing Friday. So I guess Saturday morning he went missing. So Sunday morning they did the ping when they got the notification. And they did a humanitarian ping. And the last ping was in the Sun Peaks area. But again, that's what creates the mystery, because if you look up in Sun Peaks, there's 3 towers and it's really hard to tell. So even though it could say Sun Peaks, it's really hard to tell if that actually would be accurate, because there would be times that I would be posting and I would be in the Sun Peaks proper area. And if I posted at one house, it would actually indicate my location was Pinneton. I could be somewhere else and it would say Sun Peaks. I could be somewhere else in the same village, less than a couple of meters apart, and it would ping as being in Chase. And so it's really hard to say, like, if it pinged in Sun Peaks, does that mean he was in Sun Peaks? Does that mean he was further down on the way down the road? There's no way to actually ascertain that, or it doesn't seem to be from their perspective, from the RCMP's perspective. The problem with Ryan's phone, and this is our biggest thing, we were able to get into all of Ryan's social media, all of his laptop, everything that he had. We were able to get into everything by Monday. And that, my son, lots of other things that I would say about him, but also one of them is probably a little bit lazy. He didn't change his password. Everything was easy to get into. And he had, I would say fairly certain he never turned off the Find My iPhone, because that is something that you actually have to go in and physically turn off. And the phone plan was under his name, so nobody could track or find his iPhone unless it was him. So there was no point in turning off his location. So I know he would have had that on him. Unfortunately for us, even though we could go in, we couldn't get into his Apple ID, and the only Apple product he had was his phone, which was on him. So when we tried to change the password just so we could look and see the last known location, it went to two-way authentication. And so the only authentication would have been sent to his phone, which he had on him. So it was just this awful, vicious cycle that we couldn't figure out where the last known location would have been.
I'm curious, was there any proof that maybe his phone was still active? Were calls going straight to his voicemail, or did it seem like the phone was active and charged?
I believe that the phone, what we were able to tell from Bell, because that was his provider at the time, that the phone was no longer working probably about 2 a.m. And that could have been, he worked all day, maybe the battery was low. He certainly didn't post anything on social media when he was going out, which was not abnormal for him. But also, I think there's a combination. If you're out in the cold at -26, even if his phone was fully charged, it might not have been at full strength, or might not have been working due to the conditions. So that's, has it there, cannot access it, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's possible his phone simply just died, and he didn't have any access to it.
Yeah. And I do remember when I looked back, when I got the notification from James, I had texted him that morning, that Saturday morning. I usually did almost every day, and said, "Morning, love bug. Hope you have a great day." And that was it. I never expected an immediate response. Again, young men in that age group probably are not texting or replying to their mother unless they're asking for money or the use of something. So I didn't expect a lot of response from him. But what I noticed, that when I looked back after James texted me, I looked back at the message and it hadn't even been delivered at that point in time. So his phone was definitely not working first thing Saturday morning.
Every story begins somewhere. For your child, it could begin with a Guardian bike, built right here in the USA, engineered for safety and designed for confidence. Kids of all ages are learning to ride in just one day. No tears, no frustration. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike, and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row. This holiday season, give the gift that's safer, smarter, and built to last. Visit GuardianBikes.com to save up to 40% on all bikes, plus a free accessory bundle worth over $100.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Cauli Power's got your back. Cauli Power makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Cauli Power's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcauliflower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The wait is over. The Knix Black Friday sale is on now at knix.com. Shop early and save up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, all kinds of limited-time daily deals from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Don't miss your chance to save big on innovative intimates like leak-proof underwear, wireless bras, shapewear, and more. Everything is on sale. Millions have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them too. During the Black Friday sale, save up to 60% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop the best deals of the year on Knix's best-selling assortment of wireless bras. Don't miss this chance to stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Black Friday event. That's knix.com. The sale ends December 2nd and sizes will sell out. Go to knix.com. That's knix.com.
So I'm thinking it seems logical that the police would have interest in talking to the people that last saw Ryan, being the friends he went to this party with, and then the people at the party. Did police talk with all of these people, and were they cooperative?
Everybody has been incredibly cooperative. They have reviewed this case more than once. It has gone through several members of the detachment, the rural detachment. It's also gone to their detachment in serious crimes in Kamloops, and then it was also sent to the serious crimes unit in Kelowna. So they've had lots of people looking through his file. It's probably one of the bigger files that they have. And they went back to that house. They went to that house immediately the night that they received the notification. That was the first thing that they did. And that the renters there were fully cooperative. The owner of the house has been and continues to be fully cooperative. The party goers absolutely were cooperative at the time. There was no red flags that came from the investigation that we've been told from the police. And they've been brought in more than once for some things. If somebody new was looking over the file and said, "Hey, I'm curious about this one sentence or something, I just want some clarity on it," they would go back and ask, and were able to clear up any miscommunication that they thought, or answer some questions that they had. So they've been fully cooperative the entire time.
And I'm curious too, did anybody have anything, negative to say about Ryan that night? Was there any arguments with anybody? Was he in a good mood? What was the general consensus about Ryan at this party? What did they all have to say?
It's all been there's been nothing. Like, some people have said that there was a fight outside the house, and there was another guy, Ryan. So of course they're just saying, "Oh, Ryan had a fight outside the house." It wasn't a fight, and it wasn't my Ryan. It was another Ryan and another person. Something to do with somebody's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend is now someone's new girlfriend. And there was, I think, some conversation, no physical. It was just a verbal thing. And then they managed to get over it, I think, maybe with the help of some alcohol, where they didn't care, and they came back in and they were all friends. But people assume that Ryan had something to do with it. He did not. His evening, by all accounts, was perfectly normal. He didn't go out of his way to do anything. He wasn't too introverted. He didn't pick up. I mean, he wasn't confrontational or instigational in any means by any way. And he was not that Casanova where he's going to swoop in and steal your girlfriend. I mean, I think that he was incredibly handsome, but I am his mother. And I sometimes I wish that he could see himself through the same eyes that I did, or perhaps his friends did. But I think that he was just, again, introspective, didn't really put himself out there. And I don't think I think it was a perfectly normal night. No one's ever flagged anything.
And you mentioned a little bit of an incident. Are you referring to the one where there was a guy yelling to get in a car, yelling at someone to get in a car that night outside near where that party was?
It wasn't where the party was. And I think that's where, again, there's so many people that will hear one part and assume that's the whole thing. We had been living in that community, talking to community, and we've become friends. In some cases, I'd like to say family to some of those people that continue to still live there, raise their families, and have their businesses. And we have such a connection with them. And even at that time, and we had never heard this story, not once, until it came out in the CBC interview. And this is the first time we ever heard about this person hearing such a thing. And of course, that gained traction. And the person who reported it did their civic duty. They reported it right away. They heard something. As soon as they heard Ryan was missing, they reported it. And I think it goes into that column where you're unsure of. So the information was given to the police, they investigated it, and it's come to a standstill where there's nothing else that can support it or nothing. So I think it still stands in that column that's we're still unsure of. Nothing can be proven, nothing can be disproven. However, what I would say to you is that where that incident occurred was closer to the top of the village. So again, almost 25 minutes away from where the house was. And so people will say it was right by. It was not. Ryan would have had to have walked there, and that conversation would have had to happen, and it would have had to happen outside of there. I'm not saying that it did not happen. I'm just saying that he would have had to travel, and there would have been no reason for him to go that direction because there was nothing really open, and it was the complete opposite way of which he should have been in an evening where it was really cold.
Yeah, it makes it sound a lot more powerful if it's right outside the house party, and that the fact it's not.
And all the houses are so close together, and I think people don't understand that the Sun Peaks is it's a basin. So you've got all these mountains on that, and it sits in the middle of this basin. So I can be at a house. I remember being at houses and have my window open a crack, and I can hear a dog barking in a subdivision not far away. Like the sound reverberates everywhere. And so, more people could have heard that conversation, and we've never had anybody say that they have, and what the context of what that conversation was.
And I want to jump forward to a possible sighting. I know there was a report that Ryan had perhaps decided to visit a pizza shop based on a possible sighting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We've made the leap for the pizza place, but one of the people that were working, she was working the coat check that particular evening at the silent disco, so she remembers Ryan handing her his driver's license. That's what they did in order to get the headphones, and then at the end of the evening they would have to turn those in order to get their IDs back. So she was finished sober, driving home, and wasn't going down there's only one way into Sun Peaks and one way out in the winter. There's no other way that you can travel. But she was going up near where they heard at that 2:00. She was in her car talking to her boyfriend in the same place that they heard around the same time, get in that car. And she was just driving by. And so she saw somebody, but didn't report it right away because the description of Ryan came out incorrectly. They said it was 5'6", not 6 foot, 150 pounds. He was 180 pounds. And so when she heard the description, she's like, oh, it was probably somebody else. It could have been because this person was taller. The person that's reported missing is smaller, so it's not. But she remembers the time because she was telling her boyfriend, he remembers the time because in her conversation, she's like, oh my God, that person's walking and it's so cold out. And they had their hood down, their hands in their pockets, just walking. And she was like, I can't believe this. I'm wondering if I should pick her up and pick them up because she couldn't tell really if it was a boy or a girl, I don't think. And so her boyfriend's like, no, you're by yourself, go home. And so we were trying to think, okay, could that timing work for Ryan? Why would he come back up? We're trying to figure out why he come back up if someone heard that get in the car. Why if this girl saw somebody walking, why would Ryan be up there? And it wasn't probably until April, and we were chatting with the owners, and they were like, "Yeah, well, the pizza place doesn't close until about 2:00." And we're thinking, okay, well, maybe Ryan was hungry. Coming home from work and having to quickly turn around and go back out to head back up. Maybe he didn't eat a lot. Maybe he decided to go up for pizza. But the person who was working the pizza store said, nobody stopped by. They have cameras, and there's nobody. And it was mostly takeout. So the shop wasn't really open. You could go to the window and get pizza, but everything was closed, and they didn't have anybody after that time. So that didn't pan out. Doesn't mean he didn't do that. Doesn't mean that doesn't correlate, but we haven't been able to get any further than that.
And then I wanted to ask you too about a sighting, and maybe this is a little bit of crossover of what you've already talked about, but I thought there was also a worker at a bar who may have seen Ryan. Is that another possible sighting?
If I remember correctly, that was somebody so on the opposite side, walking down towards staff accommodation, where you would have come from the village, that they thought maybe they had seen somebody, but then nothing ever came from that.
Every story begins somewhere. For your child, it could begin with a Guardian bike, built right here in the USA, engineered for safety and designed for confidence. Kids of all ages are learning to ride in just one day. No tears, no frustration. It's why Guardian is America's favorite kids bike and the New York Times and Wirecutter's top pick 3 years in a row. This holiday season, give the gift that's safer, smarter, and built to last. Visit GuardianBikes.com to save up to 40% on all bikes, plus a free accessory bundle worth over $100.
New school year, new routines, and a calendar that's somehow filled up overnight. When life gets hectic, the last thing you want to do is cook from scratch with all of that cleanup. For those busy days, Caulipower's got your back. Caulipower makes the food you crave, but made better for you. The best part? You don't have to sacrifice taste or time, so you can honor your cravings without compromising. Think thin, crispy cauliflower crust pizzas, all-natural chicken tenders coated in cauliflower, and crowd-pleasing, nostalgic pizza snacks. Clean ingredients? Always. Ready in minutes? Absolutely. Full of flavor? 100%. Answering the "what's for dinner" question has never been easier. Caulipower's products are available in freezer aisles nationwide. Visit eatcaulipower.com/where-to-buy to find a store near you.
The wait is over. The Knix Black Friday sale is on now at knix.com. Shop early and save up to 60% off site-wide. Plus, all kinds of limited-time daily deals from the #1 leak-proof brand in North America. Don't miss your chance to save big on innovative intimates like leak-proof underwear, wireless bras, shapewear, and more. Everything is on sale. Millions have made the switch to Knix's revolutionary period underwear, and there's never been a better time for you to try them too. During the Black Friday sale, save up to 60% on super comfy, machine washable, and stylish leak-proof undies. Plus, shop the best deals of the year on Knix's best-selling assortment of wireless bras. Don't miss this chance to stock up on your Knix favorites or try something new during the Knix Black Friday event. That's knix.com. The sale ends December 2nd and sizes will sell out. Go to knix.com. That's knix.com.
Essentially, there's no verified sightings of Ryan, just possible sightings. But now it's been almost 8 years. There's no sign of him. There's no sign of his remains. If something happened to him and he died in the elements, the question becomes, well, where is his body? So what, I guess I'm struggling to figure out what maybe has not been done that you think still needs to be done and you'd like to see be done in this case to find out what happened to him.
There's only so many things that we as parents can do. So we continue to advocate because that's the one thing that we can do. We continue to go up and do searches because that's the last physical thing we can do for Ryan. As to the investigation, we leave that up to the RCMP. We hold them accountable. They hold themselves accountable. And so, we still get tips. They still follow through with them. They still provide us with regular updates. So we're in constant communication with them just to see where things are tracking. I don't even know. I mean, it's so hard because the area is so mountainous. And I know people like to say that we would have found him by now. But those are people that perhaps have not been to the terrain or have not searched in some of the areas that could be searched. I mean, we don't know a direction. And again, people always like to say that I in the Pollyanna side of everything. I'm like, oh no, he's just wandered away, and he's succumbed to the elements, and that I refuse to believe any other scenario. And it's just that's untrue. It's just that as a parent, 8 years later, I stick to the facts that I know, because that's the things that help me get through the day to day. I've thought about, for every scenario that you or anybody out there has thought of, I've thought of 100 more of them. Not because I think that I'm smarter or I'm a better crime detective or sleuth than anybody else. It's just that I think about him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no reprieve for me. So you may think about Ryan when you hear this podcast, and think about him for the next hour, and then time goes on and you'll forget about this. But I think about it constantly. So I know all the scenarios, and I'm not discounting that any of them could have happened. I just stick with the facts that I know and the things that I'm able to do. So for me, it's searching. There's just so much. Now, 7.5 years later, the train is so difficult to go. And I don't know if he wandered away and succumbed to the elements, where do you look? If he didn't get to where he is now, whatever his location is, by himself, I don't know how to start tracking that. And people always go, you should move off of Sun Peaks. You should start looking. You've beaten this dead horse. There's nothing more to be found in Sun Peaks. And yes, I would say that I feel like we have done a lot in Sun Peaks, but I'd also like to challenge somebody, where would you like me to go? Because the people that are sending me, think you should go here, you should go there. There's no credible evidence to say that he has left the hill. And so I don't know. It would be as if I had a map of Canada, even the map of the world, and threw a dart and said, you know what, we're going to go to Aurelia, Ontario. And that is where we're going to start searching, because it has as much validity as if I moved down the hill, or I don't know. Where would somebody have taken him, right? And so we are sort of stuck in this thing, doing what we can, but knowing that it's not enough.
Yeah, it's got to be a unimaginably frustrating feeling for you.
Yes.
There was a $25,000 reward being offered in Ryan's case. Is that still active?
Oh, absolutely. And, we have also had Ryan's Facebook page has currently over 70,000 pretty passionate and engaged people that come onto his site. And, there's been talks over the years of them really wanting to start a GoFundMe or to help raise the reward money. However, if I knew, if someone could tell me, if somebody knew something and had that information and was willing to come forward for a price, if they could just tell me what the price was, then we would do what we could to raise it. I don't know what the magical number would be. We've had missing people's cases that have happened in Canada where the reward is substantial, and it's still not enough to tip that the hat in their favor of finding their loved one and bringing them home. I don't know what the magic number is. If I did, that's what the reward would be. We would sell everything we have. We would mortgage everything we have. We would, or we blindly rob everybody in order to get that. I don't know what that magic number is, but it is still active. There is the thought that if you raised it so much that people would be motivated by money to do the search, you worry, or there's a concern that they would manufacture what needs to be manufactured in order to find and say that they found something of him in order to collect. And so you sort of walk that balance of what is appropriate, what is necessary, and what would motivate people to come forward.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense. And, you would hope that people would help if they have information, not for the reward, but just because they want to help. But some people are motivated by money. And on the other hand, maybe there's nobody out there that has information or answers that can collect on the reward, even if they wanted to. So, again, that's going to be very frustrating not having the answers, coming in, knowing where to look exactly.
And we are in, I mean, for most, I would say every missing person case, it's either every scenario will fall into one of two buckets. Either someone knows something or no one knows anything, right? And so I can't do a lot about the someone knows something except continue to get to keep Ryan's name out there, to continue to advocate, continue to share our stories about him. I can focus on the no one knows anything, and so that's the actual search efforts that we can do in order to find him and bring him home.
Yeah, and I know you've continued to try and get attention for Ryan's case. You're a guest on podcasts like this one. You've had candlelight vigils. What other things have you done, or do you plan to do going forward to keep bringing awareness of his case?
Well, I did write a book. It was published in 2023 called Missing from Me. And I think it really chronicles the first year of Ryan going missing. And I think what makes it a bit unusual, besides just a memoir of telling you a little bit about Ryan, is that when Ryan went missing, I wrote a post almost every day for 4.5 months while we were up in Sun Peaks. And so that is included into the book. And so you could actually read in real time, not my recollections or I remember this or I was thinking this. You actually read what I was experiencing that day, and how we were processing the grief and what we were doing in our search efforts and talking about the memories and stuff like that. So that, for me, that was a legacy of love for him, so that long after Scott and I are not here on this earth, that there'll still be a record of Ryan and how much he mattered. I also have a children's book that's coming out in the next couple of weeks called Let's Talk About Dinosaurs. And that's another sort of a tribute to something that Ryan loved when he was a child, quite young, about 18 months. He used to love dinosaurs. And so there was a game that we used to play all the time as family members. And so that's kind of it feels like a more of a joyful legacy to the young baby that I had. And I think a nicer way to continue to preserve Ryan's legacy.
That sort of segues what I wanted to ask you, because I know one of the things that is out there is a symbol for Ryan and the hope for answers is this green dinosaur. Tell listeners a little bit about the green dinosaur story.
So the very first post that I did, I was recovering from a torn Achilles, and I had surgery, and I was just weight bearing when Ryan went missing. So I couldn't participate in any of the searches. And as any of the listeners would probably recognize and understand, is that as a parent, you feel like I wasn't doing enough. I felt like I was failing him by, Scott was out there searching every single day and physically doing the things he needed to do to bring our son home. And I felt like I was falling short. Certainly I was in the command center. I was signing people in and thanking them, sharing Ryan's story, that sort of thing. But I wasn't sure it was enough. So, I kept getting these notifications on our Facebook page. Have you found him? Have you found him? Have you found him? And so my phone was lighting up, and I thought, I'll just do one post. I'll address the situation, and then the notifications will stop. And so I just remember a couple of weeks prior to that, there's a young man that had gone missing. I wish I could tell you where. I wish I could tell you. I believe it was in the States. I couldn't even tell you his name. I couldn't tell you the description. All I just remember is coming across it on my Facebook page and reading about this young man had been at a party, had left and had succumbed to the temperatures and was found. And I just remember being heartbroken by the whole thing. I'm just like, oh, so sad. And then as life does, you just move on. You scroll past, you go to something else. And I forgot about him. And it came startlingly clear to me when I was doing this post that I didn't want Ryan to get lost in the feeds, that I wanted to make him matter. I wanted people to remember him. And so I could have told you he was smart and he was funny and he was kind and loving, but those are just words you can describe anybody with. They're just words. I wanted to make him real. And so I talked about this game that he loved as a child, which was called Let's Talk About Dinosaurs. And he would always, as a child, sit there and go, Mummy. And then he'd always have this pause. And I'm like, yes, Ryan. And he's like, let's talk about. And then there was always this pregnant pause. Like, maybe it was going to be ice cream this day. Maybe it was going to be baseball or sports. But it was always the same question. And it was always like, dinosaurs. I'm like, oh. And at the time, there was no Google. So, my husband and I would have to go to the library and get every dinosaur book because this kid was fascinated by all of them. And so he would always sit there and go, Mommy, what's, green and has a long neck and eats plants? And I'd be like, oh, is it an apatosaurus? He's like, no. And I'm like, is it a long neck? He goes, actually, Mummy, that's not correct. You couldn't imagine an 18-month-old, but he loved the word actually. And so I would say I've run out. He goes Diplodocus. And so we talked about that. And at the end of that post, I said, Ryan, wherever you are, let's just talk about dinosaurs. And that sort of started that. And from there started the ribbon. It was all very organic. So started this green ribbon, and it started with his the symbol of the green dinosaur and a green heart because he was born on St. Patrick's Day, and it just sort of took off. And so when I wrote the book, one of our friends started doing 3D dinosaurs, and they printed them. And so now these 3D dinosaurs have been to over, I believe, 96 countries and have been scanned over 10,000 times. So people will take them on their vacation. They will leave them. Somebody else will pick them up. And they've sort of become this symbol of awareness and kindness. And that's what the tag says, not just about awareness for Ryan, but to look around in your neighborhood and in your community and see how you can contribute to the kindness.
Wow. That's awesome. It's a great legacy, for something coming out of Ryan's case to have is something like that sort of moving around and different people sort of taking it and running with it. That's very fascinating.
It was very important for us to do that, I think, because, we've always looked for the silver linings. Just because Scott and I refused to believe that Ryan's life was anything but a gift. And so to focus on the tragedy is to dismiss all the other things that he was and will continue to be to people.
That's awesome. And just as we close out, are there any, you mentioned a Facebook group, are there any other social media places you'd like to plug or any websites where people can learn more about Ryan's case or maybe even provide tips or anything like that?
Certainly. There's the Crime Stoppers. Anybody can do an anonymous tip. There's also the Kamloops RCMP. We do have one of the things that we did in order to find purpose in this, because I don't believe there's any reason why, Ryan went missing, but can there be a purpose? And so one of the things that I did with 3 other beautiful women is to co-found a nonprofit called the Freebird Project. And what it does is provides support resources to families that are going through similar situations, because that was, I think, probably the biggest thing that we found lacking is that there's no real handbook for when your loved one goes missing, and what resources are available to you. And so we wanted to make it easier. So we share missing people's posters. We will help with command centers if they need it. We will do whatever is necessary for those families so that they can feel supported during this.
I want to thank you for coming on and talking about Ryan's case and helping listeners understand a little bit better. And, we definitely hope that your family gets the answers that you've been waiting for.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on. If you want to get early and ad-free access to new episodes of Missing Persons and help support the show in the process, please consider a subscription through Apple Podcasts. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll get early ad-free access to not only this show, but to every other show on the AbJack network of podcasts. You can get started with a free trial by searching for AbJack Entertainment in your Apple app, and we'll include a link in the show notes. If you want to find us on social media, we're on every major platform and on YouTube. Just search for Missing Persons Podcast. We'll include links to all of our social media in our show notes, and you can also visit our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. Finally, if you're in need of a platform to discuss a missing persons case that you're connected to, feel free to reach out to us on our website. We're happy to help. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.